Welcome to the Conscious Living Podcast, conversations to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. An uplifting and inspiring series of conversations and talks with your host, Jackie Woodside. We are educating minds, empowering lives, and enlightening souls to create a world where love prevails. In this engaging podcast, we deliver exciting, positive, transformative talks and teachings designed to elevate your life. Now, let's join our host, Jackie Woodside, for this week's session.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us again for the Conscious Living Podcast, where we seek to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. I am, yes, again, Jackie Woodside, the host of the Conscious Living Podcast. And today I have brought with me a colleague, Erik Luhrs, who is an extraordinary scaling coach that helps people scale their businesses with a process that he calls Be, Do, Scale. And I can't wait to hear more about that. He's the author of the book Be, Do, Sale, and he's also the founder of the Imagineering, give me the word again. Expansioneering process. So Erik, welcome to the Conscious Living Podcast, and feel free to say a little bit more about yourself to help our listeners know you a little bit better.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Basically, I can say nothing or talk forever. It's kind of like one or the other. But basically, what I really love to do is, it is my belief that every human being on the face of the earth has within them the power of their own, say, personal nuclear power plant, right? And when we're building our business, we tap into, unfortunately, most people are tapping into a backup propane generator in terms of power that they're using, energy that they're using to build their business, their lives, etc. Few people are well off enough to plug into the wall outlets in their house, so they're actually connected to the grid. But very few people actually turn around and say, I'm going to use the nuclear power plant that's all mine, that I can do everything with. So I'm kind of on a mission to help everybody in a bio-safe way access and use and their own personal nuclear power plant to have the business and ultimately the life they want.
Beautiful. And what is that nuclear power plant that each human being on the face of the planet possesses?
Well, we're all connected to source. And we are born, like when you look at a baby, babies they're all looking around. Why? Because there's all this energy that's now been condensed down into this human form. But it's, that energy, that baby is still like, mostly source, and trying to figure out how to be slower energy in a physical form. So we are conditioned, we're taught for our own good how to live in the world. But what's really happening is layers of limitation and conditioning are being piled around us. And all of that power is being locked away more and more and more so that we can be uniform with other people. And so and yet, if you look, why do we, not to get into religions or anything, but it's like we have these religions, that all teach about this higher power, spiritual people who believe in source, the great spirit, whatever you want to call it, and even the atheists who still believe, in quantum physics, and in quantum physics it says, there's attraction and whatever. So there's still this energy, this unseen energy, or these unseen energies controlling the world. So we believe them, but and yet it's kind of like most of us treat it like a fairy tale, even though we believe it. We go to places, or we listen to podcasts about it, or read books about it. And that it's all available to us. If we would just understand that it's not a fairy tale, that it's not something that we get after we die, that we are a part of it before we take physical form, during the physical form, and after we leave physical form. And the closer we are to that in our lives, the happier we are, because we're closer to our truer self. And the further we pull ourselves away, the more layers of conditioning we have around us, the worse we feel as we go through this physical form. So, just realize there's a reason you keep getting taught this in all these different forms.
Right.
Real, just pay attention to that.
That's fantastic. So So to you, conscious living is living connected to source and doing that like kind of consciously with intention. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, I mean, when I was, as I've been training over the years, I always thought that, masters, eventually when you mastered things, that, like you would wake up and have like a perfect brain every morning. Like, birds would be singing like a Disney movie and, everything, at some point in time. But I've talked to masters and masters say, yeah, I have crap days too. So yeah, so it's like, you wake up and I'm just as human as everybody else. But in my work and in living that, it's really about getting connected to that and reminding yourself on a regular basis. You have to consciously remind yourself. A lot of times I catch myself being more human than source. And it's like, oh, when I'm feeling fear, or anger or whatever, there's that's that lower, slower energy, and it builds that momentum, and we don't realize it. It can last for minutes, days, weeks, years.
Yeah.
At some point in time, though, consciously you've got to catch yourself and say, I'm being human again. Oh, wait a minute. And if I feel this junky at this stage, that means there has to be an opposite energy that's pulling me out, right? So if I feel this bad about this thing, then the truth of it the flip side of it has to be so far up in energy. And that's why I feel so bad, because I'm so far connected from the truth of the power of it. Abraham, for those who know Abraham Hicks, Abraham says, the worse you feel, the further you're delusioning that you're disconnected from source. So if you feel really bad, feel really good, because that means the truth of this, the way that source sees this, is the exact opposite. Truth knows the exact opposite about whatever this subject is for you. So I have to say, oh, okay, that's right. I feel like garbage about this, but I can consciously say, okay, if I feel like garbage, that means the energy is really out there. And, so unfocus from this and release myself back to that higher energy.
Wow. So, I mean, that takes quite a bit of emotional self-regulation, emotional mastery, psychological maturity, right? I mean, because when people are in it, feeling badly, just that, like, the thought that this is some higher energy, kind of guiding and direct me. Is that what you mean? If there's, a challenge, a death, a loss of a job, an unexpected expense, something that, kind of takes your knees out, you're saying look to that as there's some higher direction, energy that's wanting your attention. Is that accurate?
Well, yes. So that higher version of yourself is always calling you. And it's funny because for years, because it's like conscious and unconscious, whatever. I spent years studying the subconscious mind of master level practitioner in NLP. I studied civil mind control. I became fascinated with the subconscious mind because I thought it controlled everything. First was like, if your conscious mind can't do it, it's got to be the subconscious. I spent years mastering the subconscious. And I said, okay, I'm still having crappy days. How can that happen if I've mastered the thing that's supposed to get rid of the crappy days?
Right.
I even studied for a while neurogastro psychology, which is studying how the enteric nervous system affects the body.
Right.
That was a lot of my teaching for a number of years. And ultimately, I came across some of the work from folks like Joe Dispenza. And Joe would be talking about the field. But Joe's methodology for going into the field was very much, he was actually a lot of what he doesn't mean to do, but I'm not saying anything bad about Joe. I mean, he knows his stuff, is that the way it was trained, it was always more and more in the brain, and very much in the brain. And so that conscious piece. And, you're saying, does it take a lot of conscious effort? What I've realized is, he kept talking about the field, and I ultimately understood that, to me, and I can't say this for everybody else, but for me as an individual, going into the field was actually about feelings, and not taking the brain. So I developed an entire element of my process, something I call field work, but it's FEELD, which is how to go into the field of feelings and only with feelings, and actually leaving the brain behind. And so there is, in like when I have those moments when I realize, oh, I'm not connected to my higher self. When I'm connected to the higher self, it's like I have to consciously disconnect from my conscious, drop into my feelings, and feel back into the field. So even though it's conscious, it's like I go from subconscious to conscious, to letting go of attention and just becoming connected to awareness, if that makes sense.
Okay, so when you're saying the field, you're saying the field of energy, and your access to it is your awareness, or you're connecting to the field of awareness? What?
Like becoming the way we start getting into sort of weird language here. But the way I say it is that I fully allow myself to become aware of my awareness of all that I am.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like these layering things. Like you have first is the allowing. Like I'm giving myself permission to become aware that I have awareness, and then my awareness of this awareness. So there's all these dimensions of me, and yet it's all one.
Mm-hmm.
But it's okay. We live all of our lives, or most of our lives, focused in here, in our brain, thinking that this point of view is reality, that this singular, there's got to be some little dot inside here that's sitting back behind my eyeballs, that this is the center of my attention. And every time we try to escape it, it's just running us around in that hamster wheel inside. And so all of the energy, though, in my opinion, well, everything I say is in my opinion, source doesn't work according to our thoughts. Like, if you say, I want $1 million, plap, it falls. Like if that worked, then everybody, the guy parking your car would still also have a boat worth more than yours, and everybody'd be, trying to get into the dock with their 1,000-foot long, ships and stuff. And there'd be nobody to park them because everybody's on there.
Right.
So the conscious, so conscious saying, I want this doesn't work. Saying, okay, well, then I'm going to start doing a lot of subconscious stuff where I'm imagining it and whatever. Okay. But a lot of people do visualize, visualizing is a big thing. But a lot of the times what I was teaching and then learning and then teaching visualization, I realized that there was a disconnect, because people would see themselves like they were watching themselves on television, right? They'd see the movie. And it's okay, as long as you're seeing yourself doing it, you're not actually yourself doing it.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, then I moved on and I created for a while something I called experientialization, which was actually being in your body at the moment, smelling what you smell, feeling what you feel, feeling the sand between your toes, yada, yada, yada. And yet what I found was that even there, because again, the brain was in it, the brain was still making itself the center of everything. And the amygdala, as we all know, that was the almonds of doom, as I call it. For those who don't know, the amygdala is the bottom of your brain. It's shaped like two little almonds, and it's basically your fear center. It's the oldest part of your brain. And I would get to these key moments, and then the amygdala would just kick in, because the amygdala would start to feel itself losing control. Because your amygdala's entire desire isn't you being happy. Your amygdala's entire desire is to keep you alive.
Survival.
And it starts to feel you. It starts to feel you expanding. It goes, I'm losing control. You're moving outside the patterns that I've designed as comfortable for me, and it will send out anything to try to pull you back. And so that's why I kept saying, like, I'd get to these key moments, but poof, and I'd contract back down. And I got frustrated, and I said, okay, I just want to feel this feeling. And all of a sudden, when I would just want to feel a feeling, and I'd move into the field just in feeling. And, it's like the field of energy, the field of awareness, you can call it whatever you want. Because again, it's all the same thing. Everything you see or experience in your life is still you. There is nothing outside of us. But when I would move out into the field in feeling only, the amygdala couldn't come along. Because as soon as I said, okay, I just want to feel freedom, I wasn't thinking. And so I literally had cut off the amygdala because I was no longer in the brain. But all of a sudden I would feel it, and it would like come through these levels of myself, from source to my higher self, to my inner self, and finally into my physical self. And I could, but I could hear the amygdala. Like the amygdala was still, like it was doing anything. It would send out, my brain would still send out flags. It still does to this day. Every moment when I'm doing this. But it's just, instead of focusing on my attention, I focus on my awareness. Being, and do I know that it's there? Do I hear it from them? Sure. But if I'm focusing on the awareness, just the feeling, then that energy is filling me. And then all of a sudden, the source is picking up on that energy, because that's like a siren call. It's like, whereas little thoughts here and there, source ignores them because your brain's like a jackrabbit, so it's supposed to pay attention to. It's like tick, 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 tick. It's changing the channel every 2 seconds, every time you get anything going. So that's why, I eventually said, even though I had spent years studying the brain, and the brain is still very important, I understood that it's far more powerful to lead with feelings and then utilize the brain afterwards.
Okay. So this is fascinating to me, Erik. Really extraordinary conversation. So thank you. So I have a couple of questions. So you're saying to generate the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, before I ask that question, can you give a concrete example of how you would use this process that you just described? Specific example of how you've used it before?
Well, I've used the field to do lots of different things. But I'll give you the basic. Like I'll give you my morning routine. So in the morning, before I open my eyes, I do what I call, my field work process. So the first step is simply to become aware of my physical body from outside my physical body. So because again, as soon as you think about your physical body, boom, the brain goes, okay, well, I'm feeling my fingers, I'm feeling my toes, again, brain. Just simply to get to the point where allowing the self to become aware of the body, like outside of the body, like not even outside, but aware at a different level, beyond the brain, or apart from the brain, I guess you could say. Or becoming, aware from like the God perspective, you might want to say, so that you're just feeling the energy of the body, and then moving beyond that energy to, or actually inside that energy, the next thing I do is become aware of my inner self.
Mm-hmm.
So the eternal self that's within the physical self, because the physical form is the slowest form of energy. It's energy it's energy that's slowed down enough to actually be what we would call tangible, even though it's not, in reality. So then to become, aware of that inner self, and then to feel the expanse of that. And then from there to become aware of the higher self. So as much as we feel, or I feel, and my clients feel, the expanse within them, when we become aware of the higher self, it's like all of a sudden, just there is no boundary. And then ultimately beyond that, to become aware of source. But becoming aware of source is actually, instead of becoming aware from self about source, it's actually allowing source to become aware of self. So we actually flip it at the end, so that all of a sudden we feel ourselves being pulled even further. So what that does is, again, there's no thought. It's just this feeling of peace, of being, in there and being peaceful. So then I'll say, okay, very gently, and and I got to definitely explain that. All of this is about being very general and very gentle. So every time there's any real focus, back into the brain, it's about unfocusing, releasing, allowing, and then being in that very sort of, I'm not in time, I'm not in space, I'm just energy kind of place, very gentle. Then to be like, okay, what is an energy, or what's a feeling that I'd like to experience, and just saying something like freedom, but not with a, it has to feel like anything, but just sort of like dropping it out like a stone into a pond and letting it go to the furthest reaches, to where source connects with self, with higher self. And they'll be like, sometimes it'll be a very gentle feeling out at the edges, and it'll gently filter back. Sometimes it'll go out and they'll be like, wow, and it'll just be like a wave that comes back. And again, not deciding, is it going to be powerful? How am I going to feel it? What's it going to feel like? And the more that you allow and relax and allow and relax, it's like the more power you feel. But again, I'm very careful with language, because language, I've told people this forever, language is limiting by design. Feelings or emotions are eternal by nature. So even trying to describe it, articulate it with words, starts putting parameters on it. But it is all of a sudden feeling that energy, or feeling that feeling, and just letting it be, as long as it wants to. Now, it might be a few seconds, it might be a minute or two, whatever it is. And maybe trying one or two other feelings, emotions out there. And again, just let them gently, boom, boom, boom. And at some point, it's like, okay, it's like feeling energized, and then the brain will start like, okay, don't try to force. It's okay. Now, it's not about, a lot of people say, let it go. You don't actually let it go, but you just simply say, it's okay. I'm just going to focus here, focus now back into a new physical form, I should say, because, this new energy has changed us. Now, what happens is, now we've raised our frequency. And so, it's kind of like a tower. If you have a one-story building or whatever, maybe a person or a car might be able to drive and hit you. You build a tower on top of it, you might get some birds. You build a taller tower, maybe, now planes and helicopters will start banging into it. You build it tall enough, you start getting satellites banging into the thing. You build it far enough, you got planets, UFOs, asteroids, other galaxies. So the bigger you are, the more things are now in your orbit. And that's why it's like, okay, now, you go through your day and you start having these different, these different experiences, and again, that's just the morning routine. But field work can be used in any sorts of ways. I had one client, we did the process, and I took him out into the field, and I said, okay, now, what outcomes do you want? And so what I do with clients, before I take them into field work, I say, what outcomes do you want? And they'll say, blah, 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 blah. And I'll make sure that I clarify that these are the things they really want. Because a lot of times we want things that we don't want. We want things that people we're jealous of on Facebook have. And our higher self isn't going to jive with that, because it's going to say, that's not really you. That's you. That's jealousy. And that's contraction. That's not expansion. But I say, oh, okay, so, well, when I look at that person, I think they feel this. Okay, so what you really want to feel is freedom. Or, there's not that many things when you really come down to it. You want to feel love, or you want to feel freedom, or you want to feel joy, or you want to feel abundance, whatever it is. Okay, so now we've just got a feeling that you want to feel. Okay, now took them out into the field, said, okay, let's go 1 month into the future. Feel yourself in the future. Okay, great. Now feel yourself just feeling that feeling about your business. And waited till he could feel it. And then I said, okay, now from that feeling, tell me what's going on in your business. Like, let the feeling start to create the outcome and the reality. And I just was watching his face, and his eyes were closed, obviously, but I could tell from his expression, new things were coming to him. And he's like, oh, there's this thing, and now there's that thing. I said, okay, great. Now gently let yourself know how you got there. And he started saying things like, oh, we have to poll our community more. We actually have to talk to our community, we have to do this, we have to do that. And boom, okay, he opened his eyes, had all these new ideas. We fine-tuned him a little bit with, the other technology, systems I've created, whatever. But he had these big raw chunks of new ideas that he'd never had before. then went out, added it to his business, had 300% growth in a quarter. But it
Wow.
was purely from, it wasn't me sitting there saying, I'm a genius in sales. It was about, he already had it in his field. It was just letting the field communicate it to him in a way that wasn't being blocked by his conditioning.
It's super, super powerful.
Hmm.
Super, super powerful. I love this conversation, and I'm thinking it would be powerful, Erik. I'm curious how you feel about this, to actually do it rather than talk about it.
Okay.
So how do you feel about, I'll be your subject since it's just you and I here,
Okay.
to actually demonstrate this? How does that feel for you?
Okay. How much time do we have?
Till the top of the hour.
Till the top of the hour. Okay.
Well, no, that 15 minutes. So I have 5 minutes to the top of the hour, so we have time to wrap up.
Okay. So I will do my best to do this.
Is that too short?
Well, we might be able to fly into it, or it might be like, it might be a longer thing, but I think, let's go for it. What the hell?
All right. All right.
Okay.
Let's go for it. Let's just intend that we'll make it work.
Okay. So what is an outcome you would like?
An outcome I'd like in my business.
You tell me an outcome you'd like.
Well, what's working me right now is building a new house up at my summer home. I want to build a summer home, and and I don't want to have to remortgage my current house to do it. So I want, an inflow of about $300,000 into my business, so I don't have to remortgage my house, and I can still build my summer home. Tear down and rebuild my summer home.
All right. So, and what, you're feeling that you have no way to do that right now? Like, there's no idea coming.
Right. No idea of like, how am I going to bring in, an extra $300,000 into my business right now? Exactly right.
Okay. All right. So you want the feeling. So what would the feeling of when you have the 300,000, what's that feeling going to be? Do you perceive?
Yeah, it's just relaxed, excited, masterful. I would say that there's some sense of being at one with the universe and just relaxed about the whole experience and the whole process.
Okay, relaxed. Okay, and then abundant, and the idea flows to you. Okay.
I already feel abundant. I absolutely feel abundant. I feel that energy around me every single day. And there's some sense of like, I got to work at it. So I want that sense of, I got to work at it to just, like, I don't have to work at it.
And you want to feel completion.
Just completion. This is like so easy. Like, look, here it is. The universe and I are one. And now it's like, let's go build a house. And I don't have to remortgage, and, it's just easy. So happy, relaxed, easy, complete. Is that too many feelings?
No, I'm just trying to find the primary feeling in there.
Okay.
So I can go for that.
I think, the primary feeling is relief.
Relief. Okay. And what's the time frame again for this?
By the end of next summer. So 1 year.
1 year. Okay. All right. So $300,000. So basically $300,000 more in your business, and that abundance, that
9 months, 9 months to 1 year. Yeah. And $300,000 extra into my business. It just takes that, like, oh, it's just so like, oh, I'm so relieved to have that.
Okay. All right. All right. So let's take a deep breath in. Let it go. Now become aware of your awareness on your focus of your attention in your brain, so that we become aware of where we normally focus. Become aware that there's so much outside of that on which you are not focused or unfocused. And now allow yourself to simply become focused on the unfocused. And to gently and generally, very generally allow yourself to become more aware of the unfocused. And now allow yourself to become aware of your awareness of what is beyond the unfocused, on which you are unfocused and simply aware. And gently let that feeling just be what it is, where it is, and how it is. Letting go of all control and simply allowing the allowing. And now become aware of the higher self, beyond self, beyond physical, beyond non-physical. And simply allow it. And however it shows up and whatever it feels like, wherever it is, it's all fine. And let it just fill you gently as it will. And then gently allow yourself to become aware that Source is aware of you. And allow Source to be aware of you. And however that feels is fine. And now let's feel into the future. And let's feel ourselves 8, maybe 9 months out. Very gentle. Let self take us where it will. And now let us feel a sense of overflowing abundance. And simply just abundance, whatever that feels like. And now to feel it gently expanding as it will. And to let it be what it is and do what it does. And feel what it feels like. And what that opens up for us, the potentiality that opens up for us. The freedom that opens up for us. And now, in this space, 8, 9 months in the future, feel that gentle freedom, that financial freedom, that expansive financial freedom, and let yourself just simply feel it. And wherever it has come from is wherever it has come from. And now, separate from the financial, is how we play our days. And so simply allow how you feel in your business at that point. Again, separate, because we never know from where fortune will come. So feel yourself playing in your business and feel that it is expanded, gently expanded its freedom, expanded its capability. It is more of you, and it allows you to be more of you. And now gently allow yourself, as specifically or as generally, as vaguely as you desire, or as vaguely as comes to you naturally. Let the feeling begin to form into something more tangible so that you can picture or feel or taste, touch the surroundings, the happenings within your business at that time. Having fun, an expansion of you expanding. What are you feeling about your business at that time? What is a new sensation in your business? Please give me a couple of words.
Competent, confident, kind of in demand.
In demand. So desired.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wanted.
Mm-hmm.
More loved.
Loved, appreciated, seen. Yeah.
And allow yourself to feel about yourself how you feel. And remember to let the feelings guide you. Let the brain yammer on whatever it does. Let the feelings guide you. What feels like things that you are doing in your business then that enhance these feelings for you? And let those rise up. And let them gently take form. Again, as specifically or vaguely as they choose. And when you have got some tangibility, just gently say, I'm there, so that we can proceed.
I'm there.
Good. Now breathe it in and just enjoy it for a few moments, gently and generally. Always expanding. And now gently allow yourself from that point to recall how it felt getting there. All the fun, the joy, the expansion, the ride. And now allow those feelings to become very gentle memories, ideas of what you did, how you got there, what occurrences, what serendipities and synchronicities, as yet unknown, came together. And even though you may not see them, you feel them. And allow yourself to gently flow in memory back to this moment. In this new sense of expansion, in this new sense of you, in this new version of you. And now, take your time and allow yourself to open up into this new version of self. Already, even though you may not know in the brain, knowing that the field knows and that it is already guiding you.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever you're ready, come awaken to the new world.
I'm ready and excited. That was delightful, Erik. Thank you for being willing to go with that. Just to debrief briefly for people who are following along, and I'm hoping that people did their own experience, with their own process with that. I'd like to have you back on in 9 months, and
Okay.
and let's debrief this again in 9 months. But so what the field kind of pulled me into was a couple business structures But I think the primary thing was for me to take a retreat, to do a couple days of just really intensive planning and like step back from the day to day, and as you say, step into the field, meet and greet the field, to plan at a higher level, at a different level, and from this place of connecting with the field. So and there were other more specific business structures as well, but really, really fun, powerful process. So I'm hoping our listeners were right there with you and with me.
Yeah. The key thing is, so right after we're done now, if I were you, just take down some notes for yourself of whatever came to you.
Yeah.
And the key thing is that when you go do your deep planning, remember to keep, going into the field and allowing from the field, because what happens is people plan and they look to the past. Keep feeling and plan. So like outline the future instead of trying to plan.
That was actually kind of the intuitive message.
Yeah.
It was all kind of future oriented, like energetically, very, very much future oriented.
Yeah, 4 day or a single day of doing the field and allowing that, or like a week. I'd rather do a week of just being in the field, letting it draw to me, than spend a day just hustling.
Right.
Because it's like you're grinding gears, you're working against it.
Right.
But that power, it's like all of a sudden the ideas will just be like tonight. And here's the other thing is that, sometimes it comes instantly, but tonight when you're taking your third spoonful of spaghetti, all of a sudden it'll be like, and you get like the notepad out and you just start writing stuff, right? Because now it's like, you know what I mean? Like it's just
portal is open.
Yeah, the portal is open. So just be open to that. Have a notepad around you for the next few days.
So I will indeed. Yeah. Erik, I know people are going to very much want to get in touch with you, ask about the work that you do with leaders and business owners. So how can people get in touch with you?
Sure. So you can always connect with me. There's always LinkedIn. So you can just look me up, Erik Luhrs, on LinkedIn. You can go to erikluhrs.com. Make sure to put the www in there, www.erikluhrs.com. And probably by the time this show is up, I'm going to have a website up for expansioneering. So they can
good. Expansioneering. I love that. Yeah. So again, most people will just be listening to this. So it's ERIKLUHRS, erikluhrs.com and expansioneering.com. I love that. Erik, this has been extraordinary. Thank you for your willingness to play in the field together and actually do an experience rather than talking about the experience. I think that was certainly was very powerful for me, and I trust for our listeners as well. So thank you for your grace, your wisdom, and your love. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much.